everyone. So today I'm going to talk about Nale. Nale is one of my favorite Bad Batch characters of all time and one of my favorite Star Wars mothers, which you've probably figured out if you follow me on Twitter. So today I want to talk about why Nale is one of the most fascinating and complicated mother figures in Star Wars and what I think will likely happen to her by the end of the Bad Batch. So first of all, a brief introduction. If you've not watched The Bad Batch yet or The Clone Wars, Nale is the Kaminoan chief medical scientist located in Tapoka City. She was first introduced in Season 1 of The Clone Wars, and as you can see, she looks like a cross between that beautiful cow in My Green Crocodile, which you should definitely watch, and 1960s icon fashion dog Patina, who's now about $400 on eBay. Crazy! Of course, most of the Kaminoans look this way as they're based on the gray aliens from Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So George Lucas made the Kaminoans this scientist species of people that are basically the alien grays from the X-Files and Unsolved Mysteries, and I was really big into that back in the 90s, so I'm going to be kind of biased towards loving these Kaminoans in general. Of course, George Lucas made them a little more human-like. I mean, look at Nale. She has these Shakira hips for no reason. Look at her. Also, on a side note, I would love to have a Nale fashion doll. Just throwing that out there, if anybody's listening. I'd love to dress her up in little 80s Jessica McClintock prom and evening wear looks. No reason, just think it would be kind of a neat thing to have. But anyways, Nale was introduced in the Clone Wars as a scientist and one of the original engineers of the clones. We see her stationed on various outposts throughout the multiple seasons, which does make me wonder where Omega is at this time, as well as being stationed on Kamino, her home planet. She's a very instrumental character for the conspiracy arc, especially towards the end of the Clone Wars, where fan favorite Clone 5 dies. And then she joins us for the Bad Batch starting in Season 1. Now, one of the biggest reasons why I love Nale is that she's a truly morally complex character. And she's also a mirror to another fascinating morally complex character, Jango Fett. A year or two back, I made a video contrasting and comparing Boba Fett and his sister Omega. I'll link to that video below, but essentially, the Alpha, Boba, and Omega are mirror and foil characters, which means they are versions of each other living different lives. And both Boba and Omega are similar in that in their first decade of their lives, they are raised by a character that commits terrible acts, but can also be honorable and loving. Nale is the mirror of Jango Fett. So like Jango, Nale has a rather unsettling view of the clones. Though there are reasons for, having these feelings vary a little bit. Jango calls them livestock, and Nale insists to Shaak Ti, the Jedi, that the Clone Fives is property and should be terminated. Which is, it's pretty terrible. However, we are told by Hondo Ohnaka that Jango is an honorable man, even despite all that. And Nale actually does care for the clones for the most part, in ways that other Kaminoans don't really bother. She's willing to stay with injured clones in the Clone Wars at risk to her own life. But Jango will kill an associate such as Zam Wesell to protect his clients, and Nale was willing to have Fives killed to protect her clients. So, both Jango and Nale choose one unaltered clone to not be livestock. Boba is Jango's son, and Omega is Nala's daughter, because whatever reason Omega was made, and we still don't fully know why Omega was created. Whatever it was, she has become Nale's daughter. We see in Episode 1 that she gives Omega the jewelry of Kaminoan women, indicating she views Omega as one of her people. And it's the exact same ferroniere that she wears. And this is what's absolutely wild and fascinating about Nale. On one hand, she's this cold-seeming scientist who does experiments on people. It has likely intentionally or unintentionally killed a lot of the clones in her private lab. We see towards the end of Season 1 that Omega is pretty traumatized by the idea of just going back to this lab. Nala did say that only 5 enhanced clones remain, which means that something happened to all the rest, and I bet Omega had to see that. And what makes things even more emotionally complicated for Omega is Nala Se truly does love her. And that probably puts Omega in a bit of a weird position, just as Boba Fett was in a really weird position with the way Jango treated the other clones. And so far, Nala Se has helped Omega escape both Kamino and Mount Tantus. She's hired Fennec Shan to save Omega's life, an act that got Tan Wei killed. She's lied boldly and audaciously to Dr. Hemlock, and considering that Lama Su never told Dr. Hemlock about Omega being special, I have to conclude that Nala Se never said a word to Lama Su either about Omega having special blood. Because if you pay attention to all of Nala and Lama's dialogue in the first season, Lama Su only sees Omega as a source of fresh DNA. Lama Su had every opportunity and every reason to spill on Omega to Dr. Hemlock to save his own life. And he doesn't, because guess what? He doesn't know. So yeah, that's right. Omega's special blood has been something that probably only Nala Se has known about. And she has sat in prison for the entirety of Season 2, knowing exactly what Palpatine wants and refusing to ever say anything about it, just to protect Omega. And in Season 3, she's tossing Omega's blood in the garbage, like, for how many months? And she just continues to lie straight to Dr. Hemlock's face, even when she's been caught red-handed. So Nala Se is extremely devoted to Omega. And the reason is very obvious to the audience, even if not to Dr. Hemlock. And that reason is, that's her baby girl. Which leads us to consider what Nala Se's fate is going to be. And here's what I think. It's what I've thought since the very first season. I think Nala Se will die for Omega. And there are several reasons why I think this is going to happen. One, Star Wars likes to kill off mother figures. It's just kind of a thing. I think so far only Hera has avoided that fate, but most mothers die, and sometimes the fathers too, so that the hero lives their own life without the restrictions of the parent on their story. And with The Bad Batch, I have felt that this entire series is tinged with a sense of impending sadness, a lot like the prequel trilogy, as a matter of fact. You know, Omega's name has always had this sort of ominous feel to it. And I've believed that her life with her brothers is going to be short-lived, whether because they die heroically by sacrifice or just via their accelerated aging. And I made a video about that accelerated aging a year or so ago too, and I'll link to that below. That's actually also a bit about Nala Se. But, you know, in keeping with that sense of impending sadness and sacrifice, I think Nala Se will die. And it's not surprising because it is in keeping with her character, not just from what we've seen of her in The Bad Batch, but also going back to the Clone Wars. Nala Se showed in her very first appearance that she's the sort of person willing to go down with the ship. Nala Se can be ruthless, but she's also ruthlessly maternal, and I think there's a very strong chance she will die for her daughter, and that she may extend that sense of sacrifice to Emery and the other clones as well. You know, because she is the creatrix of all these clones. You know, whether she's done good or bad by them, they are still her creations, just as they are all the children of Jango Fett. She's kind of the mother to all of them, just as Jango is the father. But I think, unlike Jango, who died pretty foolishly in Attack of the Clones, I think Nala Se will actually give her life for them in order to protect them, you know, as her creations and for her daughter's sake. But let me know what you think, and may the Force be with you.